Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théâtres, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
President Trump this morning is blasting the White House Correspondents' Dinner after that monologue from comic Michelle Wolf. Moments ago, the president tweeted, in part, "The White House Correspondents' Dinner is dead as we know it. This was a total disaster and an embarrassment to our great country and all that it stands for." Here to discuss, we have CNN political commentator Anna Navarro and Jason Miller. He's the former senior communications advisor for the Trump campaign who attended the dinner. So, Anna, were you at the dinner?
Oh, hell no. I get invited. And I don't get roast. I don't like roast.
You don't like roast. You think they're mean-spirited.
I think they're mean-spirited. It's something we don't do in Latin America because I tell you, there would be somebody dead by the end of a dinner like that.
And so do you think that it's okay that there are so many White House advisors and White House surrogates that were offended, or they say they were offended, by Michelle Wolf? Do you see any hypocrisy in them not being offended at President Trump's sometimes off-color and insensitive jokes?
Listen, I'd say to Michelle Wolf, hallelujah, girl, you should be the one getting the Nobel Peace Prize. She was able to do what nobody else has been able to for get Trump supporters to actually go on TV and defend women from being skewered and offended for their looks. I have sat here now for I don't know how many months hearing people tell me that I should take it as a joke when Donald Trump goes after Elizabeth Warren, Rosie O'Donnell, Mika Brzezinski, Carly Fiorina. I mean, we could sit here and we could go through the entire morning me telling you women that whose looks he's offended, whose looks he's gone after. And it's supposed to not be serious when the president of the United States or candidate Trump did it. But it's supposed to be dead serious. Let us all clutch our pearls when a comedian does it. Give me a damn break.
Explain that disconnect, Jason.
The disconnect between
why we're okay when Donald Trump makes fun of Rosie O'Donnell's looks and Carly Fiorina's looks and Mika Brzezinski's looks, and then when a comedian may be making fun of Sarah Sanders' looks, the White House goes berserk.
Well, at the risk of diving into a masterclass episode of whataboutism, I think there are two completely different things here. I think what Saturday night was supposed to be about was the future of journalism and celebrating these up-and-coming journalists and handing out these scholarships and these awards. Yeah. And I think what the White House Correspondents Association did by putting a comedian like this up there who completely, I think it was way out of bounds with her attacks on Sarah Sanders, I think it completely discredited everything that the association was trying to do.
And so, my question was, do you think the president's attacks on women's looks are out of bounds?
Look, sometimes I've disagreed with what the president has said and wish he would have phrased things a little bit differently, but I think it's two completely different things.
Why?
I think because I think the president speaks very bluntly. He voices his opinion.
And don't comedians speak very bluntly and voice their opinion?
But it's different. I think what people like about President Trump is that he speaks his opinion, and we know what he's thinking at all times. And so whether we're talking about policy issues or personality things. The president's very direct. But I think with the comedian that was out there, it was just it was so mean-spirited and attacking Sarah right there. And I think the president made the comment that the Correspondents' Dinner I think is dead. But I think it goes even a little step further. I think the White House Correspondents Association, in its current construct, is probably dead as well. I think there are probably going to be leadership changes.
This is cause for crucifying the White House Correspondents Association because she may or may not have attacked Sarah Sanders on her looks. But we don't feel the same way when the President of the United States says things about women's looks. Just explain that, Jason.
But they're two completely separate things. And I don't see how a terrible comedian who wasn't funny at all and went out there just with a specific person or purpose of trying to get even because Hillary Clinton didn't win the election in 2016.
Okay.
And the political left, the political left doesn't like Trump.
I'm not sure that's what
First of all, this is not a new thing, right? We have seen Don Imus skewer the Clintons sitting there. We have seen Stephen Colbert one year at the White House Correspondents' Dinner skewer George W. Bush with him sitting there. I think part of what's happening here is that Donald Trump does not sit there. Usually you get the comedian doing their thing, and then you get the president doing the counter thing. But because instead he was in Michigan, where Hispanics were getting booed at his rally, where people were going out after the media and calling them filth and get out of our country, where that night his DOJ was removing references to a free media from their manuals. That's what was happening in the real world, while the comedian was actually making bad jokes. He was making bad decisions and bad things happening.
If we're going to talk about the real world, let's talk about what President Trump is doing to bring peace to the Korean Peninsula.
No, let's not talk about that. We're here today to talk about journalism. We're here today to talk about the White House Correspondents' Dinner.
Hold on.
We're not going with your pivot.
Hold on. Yes, just don't pretend that we haven't been talking about that. Okay, we've been talking for days about what's going on in the Korean Peninsula. This segment,
if she's going to say let's talk about the real world,
is about the hypocrisy. Just helping us understand why it's okay for the President of the United States to make fun of women's looks and mock a disabled reporter, but it's not okay for a comedian to. That's what we're trying to make sense.
If I'm following your logic train, then why are two wrongs right then?
I want you to answer it. I want you to tell me why you're less comfortable with a comedian doing it than you are with the president doing it.
And I've disagreed with sometimes with the words that the president has used.
And this morning you are roundly criticizing the president and asking him never to do that again because it's so offensive.
What I'm saying is I want the president to continue to be direct. I want him to continue to speak the truth. Look, when
it involves women's looks?
I think that he should keep things focused on his policy items. I think that's when he's doing his best. And you know what? I think the Correspondents Association shouldn't bring up comedians like they did on Saturday. They're just going to go attack Sarah Sanders with absolute terrible comments. And I think that's probably why we're not going to see the dinner probably ever again. And it's not just the political right or President Trump or other people who are saying this. I mean, look at the fact of the way the political left has really abandoned the dinner. I mean, the fact that you have a D-list, and I use air quotes on that celebrity, is the top Hollywood person even there, shows you the political left doesn't even care about this dinner anymore.
I think that's because no real celebrities want to show up and rub elbows with the Trump folks. But look, I mean, that's why the celebrities aren't showing up, because you guys aren't all that funny and all that good to hang out with. But let me just say, let me say part of the reason why
it becomes so personal. Why does everything have to get so personal?
That's such a ridiculous thing for you to ask when you are making this thing that Michelle Wolf did personal, when she attacked Anderson Cooper, when she attacked CNN, when she attacked Ted Kennedy, who's dead, when she went after abortion, she attacked Ivanka, and the only person we're focusing on is Sarah Huckabee Sanders. I get it. She was, sitting 3 feet away, which made it more awkward. But part of the reason we are talking about this is because people like Maggie Haberman, who have gotten skewered, have gotten called third-rate journalists and Hillary Clinton flunkies at the failed New York Times, came out in defense of Sarah Huckabee Sanders, because journalists who have been attacked by this president and who this administration and Trump supporters have normalized and rationalized and justified those attacks came out in defense of Sarah Huckabee Sanders, something you are unwilling to do for people like Elizabeth Warren, for people like Rosie O'Donnell, for people like Mika Brzezinski, for people like Megyn Kelly.
Anna, hold on.
Alyson has given you all the chances in the world.
Anna, hold on. I think Maggie Haberman is a fantastic journalist, and I wish the president hadn't said that. I think Maggie is absolutely fantastic, and so please don't go and try to put words in my mouth, because
Maggie is fantastic. It's not saying Hey,
please don't
well,
attack
tell you what, Jason, welcome to the Snowflake Club, honey. How does it feel?
It is Friday, the 4th of May of 2018, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam, and our daily special is Blue Moon Spirits Fridays, folks, because we are all Nighthawks in the Diner of Life. Okay, well, May 4th, an ominous date, within the historical construct that I've lived under, and maybe yours too. It was on this day that 4 students at Kent State were murdered, massacred by the Ohio National Guard, and scores injured. Live bullets. They put live rounds in their guns. Yeah, because putting flowers down the gun barrels, that's a little bit too much disrespect. It's almost like taking a knee. Flower in a gun barrel? That just goes against everything that America stands for, and people have to die for it. Interesting information that a lot of people forget about that incident. The Ohio National Guard had been fired on during a Teamster strike in the days leading up to the Kent State protests. And they had been on edge. Teamsters. Yeah, they were on strike. And the National Guard actually had gunfire directed their way during that strike. So it didn't take much to raise the fear level of the National Guard, because you have to remember, back in the day, the hippies and the college students and the anti-war protesters and the black people and the brown people and the yellow people, oh my God, they're all monsters the size of Godzilla. And if there's going to be thousands of them, that's a lot scarier than a bunch of burly Teamsters firing guns at you. And they were primed for it. Now, I'm not trying to absolve the National Guard of their complicity in this massacre. But it always perplexed me how it was that the National Guard could stay in formation while being fired on, shot at by Teamsters. But for some reason, they were way more fearful of the college kids. How does that happen? That happens from brainwashing. It does. Well, speaking of brainwashing, Rudy Giuliani just won't shut up, and there's a reason. It's not by accident. There's, there may be method to the madness. Okay. Once again, that side expects all of us to be as stupid as the people who voted for them. It ain't going to work, okay? I'm so old, I remember when ain't was not in the dictionary. That's how old I am. So I have a pretty long memory. Okay. A Maine mayor who marked one of the Parkland shooting kids of survivors is getting recalled. Well, that's what happens. That is what happens. I guess Trump will be turning on Jared, because men are expendable, and a good woman like Ivanka, you can't ask her a question. Yeah, well, I don't know. She may be in Prison Orange, or whatever the color is of the particular facility that she will be incarcerated in. I don't know. I suspect they're going to put him in one of these facilities that have tennis courts and a spa. It just may happen. Home detention. Here, wear this ankle bracelet. It's from Tiffany's. What are we going to be attending to today? Because that was a little bit of a longer piece at the top there. I had to get Alyson Camerota and Anna Navarro in there taking down Jason Miller, because I hate that guy. This is, I don't know. I think John Bolton's mustache to Ty Cobb's mustache to Jason Miller's goatee is still the classic double play. I'm serious. Check out the scorecard. Well, I had to get them in. I've been saving that for a bit, and it's the end of the week, and I had to do it. So it's a little bit longer than we would normally do. But thank you, Alyson and Anna for I think basically kicking that guy like a stuttering gopher is how it was described. Two women kick a stuttering gopher. I think that's the perfect description and apt for how we're going to attend to the rest of the day. Well, on the rest of the menu, the FBI reports that a female college student was attacked in Missouri on Punish a Muslim Day. Okay, that's a thing. Yeah, a bunch of right-wing, anti-Muslim, bigot, whatever. Pull off headscarves of women, punch a guy wearing a turban. Oh, he's a Sikh? Oh, well, it doesn't matter. They all look the same to me. And they do. There is no disguising the racial redlining in Michigan's Medicaid work requirements. It's right. And with its annual convention slated for tonight, the National Rifle Association is refusing to answer questions about its financial ties to Russia. Indeed. After the break, we'll move to the chef's table, where messages and chat logs from a confidential chat room, as well as interviews with a former member, reveal the notorious Atomwaffen neo-Nazi group has infiltrated the active duty military. Well, there's been some speculation that, Nazis are part of our military. But this particular group, the notorious Atomwaffen, have been tracked. And indeed, it looks like that particular group is increasing their numbers within the active military. Now, that's nice. And former CIA Director Michael Hayden says Russian bots amplified the Jade Helm conspiracies, and it wasn't just bots either. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Go to the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com. You'll notice the chat room link on the rightish of the page. Kelly Lincoln, our roaring girl, does monitor that and administer it quite diligently throughout the day. To the leftish of the chat room link there at the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com are the donate, contribute buttons, and all kidding aside, we're unable to do this without you, and thank you for your generosity. It really does come at the opportune time, as they say. You can follow Netroots Radio on Twitter at Netroots Radio. We're on Facebook, too. I don't know why, but we are. If you are, that's fine. I mean, my mom's there, and, try to keep her there. But she's roaming around. We go to places none of us have ever been. She brings, scores and scores of people to some, weird wooded resort somewhere. And apparently we're all there. It's news to us, but she likes it that way, and we keep her happy. You can follow me on Twitter at Justice Putnam, and also I put up the show notes and links on the diary at Daily Co's, which I can be found at as Justice Putnam. Podcasts of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy can be had by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iTunes, etc., etc., etc. Music that's on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy is provided by the lovely Frances Livings, and she's got a show tonight at the Urban Press Winery in Burbank at 8 p.m. And if you're getting this by podcast, she has an upcoming show Sunday, June 3rd at the Urban Air Market in Los Angeles at 2 p.m. Sort of like a late brunch appearance, and she does those Sunday brunch shows. They're great. So check that out and check her work out. The links are provided on my Daily Co's diary. Yes, of course. All right. So we better get on to these stories as since it is Blue Moon Spirits Fridays, and we are all Nighthawks in the Diner of Life. This is a maddening story. Dominique Jackson from Raw Story brought this forward. A female Muslim student was attacked at Metropolitan Community College in Kansas City, Missouri, and the FBI announced that. And that the attack took place in April on Punish a Muslim Day. You know, sort of like brown shirts going out, on Kristallnacht, beating the crap out of Jews, setting Jewish businesses and homes alight. Okay. And I just got to say, when people tell me, well, you shouldn't be talking about punching a Nazi, I usually don't punch people first. But, part of counterpunching is being, reacting to the punch and getting there a little quicker than the thing that's coming at you. But you have to recognize that something's coming at you. And if you don't, you're down for the count, aren't you? Well, the day is a violent initiative to spread hate. Participants can earn rewards and points for violent acts committed. These include 25 points for pulling off a woman's headscarf, 500 points for murdering a Muslim, and 1,000 points for bombing a mosque. On the day of her attack, the female student was walking to class when she heard a man yell racial slurs to her. As she turned around, the man punched her in the face. The student immediately reported the incident to campus police and received medical attention. The FBI is offering a $10,000 reward to anyone who can offer up information on a potential suspect. And FBI spokeswoman Bridget Patton said the incident is a potential hate crime. This is almost like the FBI is at odds with Donald Trump. Huh. Interesting. Christina Medina, a spokeswoman for the college, said, as a district, MCC will not tolerate discrimination or harassment against our students, employees, and the community. Chancellor Kimberly Beatty said, we encourage you. If you see something, say something. Well, that's kind of turning it on its head, isn't it? If you see a white supremacist beating the crap out of somebody, you report it, please. Because I really think that people are coming to the realization where the true danger emanates from. Is by Amanda Michelle Gomez out of Think Progress. Now, there is a racial redlining in the Medicaid requirements in Michigan. They are work requirements. Isn't that weird? Now, what happens is that if someone lives in a county where unemployment is over 8.5%, they don't have to prove they're working to get medical help, but on its surface, it seems like that's a good idea, except what happens is that it covers predominantly white rural areas, but predominantly black urban areas are not exempted, and they have to meet the requirements. Now, people living in large cities with black populations, like, Detroit and Flint, have to meet these requirements with decrepit and, let's be clear, not a really good transit system. And they have to meet those requirements. So, surprisingly, Rick Snyder is against work requirements, and he's set to veto the bill. But these work requirements are being floated in other states, almost like they were, written by one of those lobby shops like ALEC. Almost. Well, let's keep an eye on that. Last offering here at the Bistro Cafe, part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Blue Moon Spirits Fridays, is an article out of Share Blue Media by Carolyn Orr. After months of denials, the NRA had finally admitted last month in reply to Ron Wyden that it had accepted donations from 23 Russian-linked sources. Before that, it only acknowledged receiving money from one Russian source. And now that they're having their big confab, and actually it starts today rather than tonight, but they'll have their big speakers and whatnot tonight. And they're surprisingly, I'm shocked, mum about their financial entanglements with a hostile foreign power. Okay, well, the organization spent at least $55 million during the 2016 election cycle, including an estimated $30 million to support Trump's presidential bid, more than its combined spending in all races during the 2008 and 2012 presidential election cycles, and that was against the black guy. Where'd they get the money? Well, according to McClatchy, those figures may actually significantly underestimate what was actually spent. Two industry insiders said the group spent upwards of $70 million but failed to disclose some of its expenditures. Well, very interesting. So Wyden has asked the NRA for details on how it ensures that no foreign money is spent on American elections, but the NRA's legal counsel said in its latest letter that the group would not provide any additional responses to the senator. With the group stonewalling him, Wyden released a statement yesterday announcing that he had referred his correspondence with the NRA to the Federal Elections Commission. You can move your little bishop over there, and we'll just, castle you. So there. Meanwhile, CNN reported this week that the NRA is bracing for an investigation, although the group has denied that it accepted illegal donations. The NRA officials have been gathering materials in preparation for an investigation. And let's see. The night before Trump spoke at the NRA's convention in 2016, Don Jr. met with Torsion, who had been introduced to the Trump campaign as a close ally of Putin who could set up a back channel to the Kremlin. And, of course, Torsion is one of the, fairly deep-pocketed bigwig in the NRA. Russian, by the way. An oligarch. According to NPR, Torsion, who was targeted last month by U.S. sanctions for benefiting from the Putin regime and playing a key role in advancing Russia's malign activities, attended every NRA convention from 2012 to 2016 in an effort to cozy up to American politicians and NRA executives. I think he might have been successful. Now just remember, you can be an asset, you can be an idiot, or you can be a dupe. Or actually, you can be a dupe and then an idiot. And sometimes they're interchangeable. Not so much an asset. An asset knows what they're doing. A dupe, and an idiot is, you can just idiotically stumble into doing what they want you to do. So who knows? Maybe it's, a mashup of dupe and idiot. It was during these conventions that Russia reportedly sought to infiltrate the NRA and cultivate relationships with Trump associates. According to campaign communications released alongside the House Intelligence Committee Minority Report, Russia was looking to establish a first contact with the Trump campaign through an intermediary at the NRA. This year, Trump will return yet another time to speak at the convention, and although Torsion won't be there, you can be sure Russia will send a replacement. Then again, it may not need to after all. With Trump in attendance, Putin knows his interests will be well represented. Indeed. All right, let's get to our break, and we'll come back, go through weather from around the world, and then finish up with, of course, the stories that we've curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Clinton Johnston. This week, a portrait of the artist as art. Leaning into the Wind is filmmaker Thomas Reidelsheimer's follow-up to his 2003 documentary Rivers and Tides. Both films share the same subject, Scottish sculptor and nature artist Andy Goldsworthy. But today's artist is not yesterday's. Where Rivers and Tides focused on the ephemeral nature of Goldsworthy's pieces, Leaning into the Wind finds the artist 15 years later with a change in his medium. Goldsworthy still sculpts, and we see some pieces that are impressive in their scope, but he's also taken to finding his art in his own physical interaction with nature. It's almost performance art, but done on the sides of roads and in fields where few people may see it. At one point, Goldsworthy and Reidelsheimer and his camera are in a forest when it starts to rain. Goldsworthy immediately lies down, face up on a large flat rock. After some minutes, he stands revealing his silhouette where his body had shielded the rock surface from the water. It's a simple concept and execution, but the reveal is unexpected and the act striking as you start thinking about its suggested implications. We can see how easy it is for us to make our mark on the natural world. Though that mark can be significant, it is far from permanent. It's still raining. That silhouette will be gone in moments. Natural processes set in to eliminate our presence almost as soon as we establish it. Undoubtedly fitting style to subject matter, Reidelsheimer's film seems capricious in its episodic nature. There's no narrator, and Reidelsheimer keeps himself off camera. We are left with scenes of Goldsworthy. Goldsworthy working, doing his art, and talking in a divided interview that is as close as we get to a narrative spine for the film. In fact, Reidelsheimer, who did his own editing, lets us stumble into scenes much like a spectator stumbling across one of Goldsworthy's performance pieces. Like Rivers and Tides, Leaning into the Wind gives us a rare opportunity to capture Goldsworthy's art, which, designed not to last, we may otherwise not get a chance to see. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Clinton Johnston. Catch up with us at TakeTwoMovieReview.com and feed us back on our page on YouTube.
It's Thursday, May 3, 2018.
With this latest reckless decision, the EPA did not just jeopardize our planet and our health, they also broke the law.
17 states sue Trump administration over rollback of car emissions standards.
This is a worst-case scenario for government ethics. I feel like I want my head to explode right now.
More new ethics problems for EPA Administrator Scott Pruitt. Pakistan sets all-time world heat record for the month of April. Plus, Russia launches the world's first floating nuclear power plant.
Fantastic. What could possibly go wrong? All of those stories and more straight ahead. From BradBlog.com, I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comment.
We aren't killing our planet. Let us face it. There is no planet B.
Yes, there is. It's called Mars, and Elon Musk is going to fly us there, and we will all be eating Matt Damon's poop potatoes. Okay?
This is your Green News Report. Okay, Desi Doyen, Scott Pruitt used to brag about the fact that he had sued the EPA 14 different times. Well, I guess what comes around goes around.
Yes, it certainly does. A coalition of 17 states and the District of Columbia filed suit against the Trump Environmental Protection Agency on Tuesday, arguing that the administration's attempt to weaken Obama-era fuel economy and emissions standards for cars and trucks is against the law. The states, led by California, allege the rollback is arbitrary and unsupported by evidence and would increase healthcare costs and climate change impacts. In a press conference, California's Democratic Governor Jerry Brown was characteristically blunt.
He's breaking the law. He's flouting the Clean Air Act and the legitimate needs and well-being of the American people. This is about health. It's about life and death. Pruitt and I suppose his boss, Mr. Trump, they want people to buy more gas, create more pollution. Hard to believe, but that's the fact.
The 17 states represent 44% of U.S. car sales. Governor Brown and some auto industry analysts warn that weakening the standards could hamstring the U.S. auto industry because the rest of the world is transitioning to cleaner cars and trucks.
Which means they're going to be able to sell a lot more cars, and the U.S. auto industry is going to be caught out again.
More troubles for EPA Administrator Scott Pruitt. 2 of his top aides resigned this week related to Pruitt's questionable spending and ethics. Now, new reports reveal that Pruitt's exorbitantly costly trip to Morocco last year was actually organized by a lobbyist who was then subsequently hired by Morocco to lobby the U.S. government.
Nice.
Former federal ethics chief Walter Schaub told CNN,
"It's inconceivable in any other administration that he'd still be in this position, particularly because the whole point of the trip seems to have been to promote natural gas industry interests, and it's really not clear what an EPA administrator has to do with that."
Well, it depends if that EPA administrator is Scott Pruitt and has been funded for years by the fossil fuel industry.
And now the Washington Post reports that a billionaire who advised Trump on deregulation has himself received a special exemption from regulation. The EPA this week quietly granted billionaire Carl Icahn a special financial hardship waiver worth millions of dollars that exempts an oil refinery he owns from renewable fuel blending regulations. Icahn was forced to step down as a Trump advisor last year amid corruption allegations that he was using his position to benefit his investments.
Billionaire Carl Icahn got a hardship waiver
for a profitable refinery.
Poor guy.
Meanwhile, the impacts of global warming caused by burning fossil fuels continue to accelerate. Pakistan on April 30th hit 122 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, if confirmed, that would be a new world record for the hottest April temperature ever reliably recorded on the entire planet.
Wow.
But some good news for breathers. New York City this week announced plans to electrify their entire bus fleet by 2040. Even better news, Shenzhen, China announced it has already converted its entire fleet of 13,000 buses to electric, and they did it in just 3 years. In Hawaii, a bipartisan unanimous vote in the state legislature made Hawaii the first state in the nation to commit to 100% renewable electricity and a statewide net zero carbon emissions economy by 2045.
Nice.
And finally, Russia has launched the world's first floating nuclear power plant, and it's headed on a very slow barge to the Arctic, where it will begin operations sometime next year. It's part of a planned fleet of floating nuke plants that Greenpeace warns could cause Chernobyl on ice.
Not as nice. For much more on all of these stories and the ones we couldn't get to today, please check out our website at greennews.bradblog.com. Find us, follow us, and share us worldwide on the Facebooks and the Twitters at Green News Report. We'll be off for the next week, but we'll be back thereafter. Until then, I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
And this has been your Green News Report.
Ice, ice, baby. Ice, ice, baby. All right, stop, 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 stop.
If it's class warfare, we're the People's Army.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
From UN headquarters in New York, I'm Luke Vargas with your world in 2 minutes. The Spanish terror group ETA has reportedly agreed to disband, ending a nearly 60-year armed insurgency against the Spanish government.
This is the end of an era.
Dr. Joseph Brown is an assistant professor of political science at UMass Boston, where he researches civil conflict and terrorism.
This is the last passing of the era of violent, revolutionary, ethnic nationalism in Europe.
ETA began its fight in the late 1950s using bombings, kidnappings, and targeted killings to try and defend the Basque people from a violent crackdown led by the dictator Francisco Franco, who even banned the speaking of the Basque language.
Their use of violence was more popular with Basque people when they were fighting Franco's fascist regime. And ETA was actually instrumental in bringing about the demise of fascism in Spain. Franco had a successor who would have taken power if ETA hadn't blown up a mine under his car in 1973.
But with time and the end of fascism in Spain, support for ETA's violent tactics declined, especially as the Spanish government devolved more political powers to the Basques. As of this year, ETA is believed to have had just several dozen members and had not staged any violent attacks since 2010. And Iranian Foreign Minister Javad Zarif is accusing the United States of violating a 2015 nuclear deal days ahead of President Trump's likely move to tear up the agreement by citing Iranian noncompliance. In a video message on Thursday, Zarif said the U.S. is the one violating the deal by not fully undoing sanctions and continuing to dissuade companies from doing business with Iran.
We will neither outsource our security, nor will we renegotiate or add on to a deal we have already implemented in good faith.
Luke Vargas, the United Nations.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the Chef's Table of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Blue Moon Spirits Fridays. We are all Nighthawks in the Diner of Life. Well, some of us are. Because some of us are wrecking our reputations, in the White House. So, like, whenever someone tells me I failed in life, I always say, well, you could be in the Trump White House right now. It could be a lot worse. All right. Well, let's begin with weather from around the world, and we always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River and the Rogue River Valley of southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 51 degrees Fahrenheit. Very pleasant, I believe. We will be going into highs of the low to mid 80s today. Humidity, though, is going to be, at 77%. Not so terribly bad. Having drying out conditions, which is all right to a certain degree, though chances of rain are increasing over the weekend, and we should be having about a third of an inch of rain come Monday, Tuesday, maybe Wednesday. So we'll be getting 2 days of pretty good rain. Don't know if it's coming in on Monday or Tuesday. But about a third of, almost an inch of rain. What was I saying? A third of an inch. I meant 3/4 of an inch, but it's really going to be about an inch. We'll see. Maybe that's a lot. I think that my garden will handle it. I'm sure it will. Winds are currently out of the southwest, about 3 miles per hour. Will be increasing later on this morning out of the west-northwest to 5 to 10 miles per hour, and continuing through tonight out of the west-northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. And then tomorrow they should be out of the north at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Grass pollen is considered high. I don't have data on air quality, though. It was down to 13 parts per million last night. So maybe we'll be good today for a while. Except whenever the air quality is really good here, that gives people entreaty to, burn their trash. They do that here. 2018, they're burning trash. The UV index is high. I do wear a straw hat, and you put on the sunscreen. You better do it. I used to get ridiculed by my contemporaries because I wore zinc oxide on my nose when I went surfing. It kind of makes you look like like you got tape on your nose or something. But so far I don't have any melanomas arising there, whereas some of my friends have a bit of a problem. So who's laughing now? Well, I'm not laughing at you. I just wish you'd listen to me. Okay? Yep. Take precautions. Mitigate a problem before it happens, instead of trying to figure it out after. Jeez. All right. Enough of that. I should say once again, let's see. Visibility is at 10 miles. Good. We're going to have partly cloudy, though right now we're clear. And looks like we'll have a really nice day. I'll have to get some work done. Yep. Physical work, around the house. I have a painting job that I got to do here. And because when it gets hot, it blisters things. So I got to go out there and knock all those blisters down. Put up some Achilles primer and roll out. Yeah, I'm going to roll it. I'm not going to spray. I'll just roll out the body paint. Be done with it. But I got to get that done quick. Okay, weather from around the world is brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. They do. The guy just outside of London is registering 66 degrees and partly cloudy at his little weather station planted in his backyard penthouse patio or, wherever. Paris is registering 67 degrees and sunny. Oh, God. Wow. May in Paris. It's very pretty. Rome is 66 and mostly cloudy. They do have a wind and flood advisory. Kiev is 87 and fair. Kabul is 70 degrees with showers in the vicinity. Hong Kong is 73 and mostly cloudy. Tokyo is 58 and fair. Sydney, Australia is 59 and clear. San Francisco, California is 49 degrees and cloudy. And New York is 76 degrees Fahrenheit and fair. Another great spring day in the neighborhood. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these personal purchased weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. First offering here at the Chef's Table of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Blue Moon Spirits Fridays is by ProPublica. Though NPR's Frontline had a cooperative effort involved in this report. So, let's see. The 18-year-old, excited by his handiwork at the bloody rally in Charlottesville, Virginia last summer, quickly went online to boast he used the handle Vasilis the Greek. Today, cracked 3 skulls open with virtually no damage to myself, the young man wrote on August 12, 2017. Pistolas had come to the now infamous Unite the Right rally, eager for such violence. He belonged to a white supremacist group known as Atomwaffen Division. Oh, I should note, when you see this word, Atom, it's V-A-F-F-E-N. In German, those 2 F's are pronounced S. Atomwaffen, not Atomwaffen. Atomwaffen Division, a secretive neo-Nazi organization whose members say they are preparing for a coming race war in the U.S., just like Charles Manson. Just like him. And sometimes they want to, further the cause. Try to nudge that race war along a little bit because it's not happening fast enough for them. And it never has it? In online chats leading up to the rally, Pistolas had been encouraged to be vicious with any counter protesters, maybe even sodomize someone with a knife. He responded by saying he was prepared to kill someone if the shit goes down. Well, one of Pistola's victims that weekend was Emily Groskansky, a data scientist and trans woman from Charlottesville who had shown up to confront the rally's hundreds of white supremacists. In an online post, Pistolas delighted in how he had drop-kicked that tranny during a violent nighttime march on the campus of the University of Virginia. He also wrote about a blood-soaked flag he kept as a memento. Not my blood, he took care to note. Remember that was the march that Trump said, well, there's some many fine people there. Because he likes the idea of many fine people drop-kicking transgender citizens of the United States. Because, they're obviously other. They're not real Americans like these neo-Nazis. And I got to tell you, we fought a war to kick the Nazis out. You cannot be a Nazi and you cannot be an American at the same time. I'm throwing down the gauntlet. No, you cannot be a Nazi or an American at the same time. It's impossible. You cannot do it. I don't care. I don't care what you say. The facts are the facts. So this Atomwaffen has shown up and has been responsible for many of the more violent aspects of these white supremacist rallies. And according to ProPublica and Frontline's investigative journalism, they've monitored chat rooms, spoken with at least one former member, and they've come to the conclusion that Atomwaffen indeed has infiltrated our active military. I would note that it's not any surprise, as I specified up top, that neo-Nazis and white supremacists, KKK, etc., have been part of the U.S. military for quite some time now. Really. And it's not any surprise. But to actually monitor it in, I would suppose, a more real time and identify specific folk in the military, maybe. ProPublica and Frontline have identified at least 3 Atomwaffen members or associates who are currently employed by the Army or Navy. Another 3 served in the armed forces in the past. And Pistolas, the 18-year-old kid, yep, he remains an active duty Marine. Yep. But he left Atomwaffen in a dispute late in 2017 and joined up with another white supremacist group. Reporters made the identification through dozens of interviews, a range of social media, and other online posts, and a review of the 250,000 confidential messages obtained earlier this year. So, these Atomwaffen folk, they don't just go to the local beer garden and hoist a few steins to their fatherland. No, they do weapons training and, sometimes with paintballs, sometimes with a little bit more dangerous toys. And they are in the Army or the military to, as one Atomwaffen guy tries to encourage Atomwaffen members to enlist in the military so as to become proficient in the use of weaponry and then turn their expertise against the U.S. government, which he believed to be controlled by a secret cabal of Jews. Well, if you're a real Nazi, it's not a secret cabal. See, these guys are... Yeah. The Army itself woke me up to race, and the war woke me up to the Jews, this guy Beckett wrote. The U.S. military gives great training. You learn how to fight and survive. Okay. Well, I grew up in Oregon. I don't know about the fighting part, though, we were put into boxing and wrestling classes, so, we could defend ourselves. Because you had to, And we were taught how to survive in the backwoods because, kids will be kids, and if you get lost, you got to be able to find your way back. And if it takes some while, you better learn how to not die from exposure. I remember learning that at a very early age. Probably around the time they allowed me to, get off the leash. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. It was called a youth halter. Because, there were kids would wander around and they might fall into the raging river nearby. Where there was one. It was called the Mackenzie. So, yeah, when I was a little kid, pegged me right down in the middle of the yard, put essentially a dog harness on me. And, and then when they allowed me to roam around, I was a little bit more conscious. Like, maybe I don't want to fall into the raging torrent there, more than a toddler's gait away. Yep. So, these folks in Atomwaffen are continuing to recruit. They've been caught in high-profile criminal cases, everything from, the armored car hijacking and killing of armed guards. We're back to that again. Okay, so need to take great care with these folks. I don't think I'd want to be necessarily confronting them. Or maybe I would. But I would hope that our police forces haven't been too infiltrated by the Atomwaffen. Okay, and the military, I think, should take greater care in who they're allowing to be in the military. Might need to take some steps to check out who might be those consorting with hostile foreign powers, or, as I think the Constitution specifies, enemies foreign and domestic.
Danser maintenant sous l'été, les pieds nus dans le sable. Danser maintenant et jeter vos ennuis dans les vagues qui dansent.
All right, Casey Michelle from Think Progress has this last offering here at the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Now, do you remember Jade Helm, the conspiracy theory in 2015 in which Obama was going to declare martial law under the auspices of military exercises, and it went wild through the South? Remember that? Well, and it took place across a number of states, and people were so afraid that the black president was going to use the military to make everybody be good neighbors, that even Texas Governor Greg Abbott sent the Texas State Guard down to monitor what the National Guard and all these military people were doing, just in case. They had to, have an Alamo's last stand against all the brown people, especially the black guy who's president. Remember that? Well, even though that conspiracy did not originate with Russian bots, according to former CIA Director Michael Hayden, Russian bots amplified it beyond all repair. Indeed. So go read the rest of that article. It's quite interesting. And we need to take care, because these active measures have been going on for quite some time. All right, so that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day and the week here at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. But stay tuned to Netroots Radio through the weekend. We'll meet up with you on Monday for River City Hash Mondays. We'll stay tuned to Netroots Radio, and we will meet up with you on Monday in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théâtres, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe, Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goer. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma robe à fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus d'être tendre. Les années passent, il est loin l'âge tendre, nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum, 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 dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum, 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 dans mon jardin d'hiver.